The great arena of Zephyria buzzed with nervous energy as thousands of alien spectators filled the crystalline seats. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for what many believed would be the most important diplomatic meeting in centuries. The Terran Federation, humanity's governing body, had requested an audience with the Council of Nine Worlds to discuss Earth's potential membership in the galactic community. Ambassador Cale Thornwick straightened his formal diplomatic robes as he walked toward the center of the arena. Behind him, a small delegation of humans followed, their faces showing a mixture of determination and anxiety. The weight of humanity's future in space rested on this moment. "Look at them," whispered ZYX-Star, a reptilian dignitary from the Scalian Empire. "So small and fragile. How did such a weak species even manage to develop space travel?" The comment rippled through the nearby alien observers. Indeed, humans appeared unremarkable compared to the towering Krillian warriors with their chitinous armor, or the ethereal void whispers who floated several feet above the ground. Even the smallest alien species present stood taller and appeared more physically imposing than the human delegation. At the center of the arena, 9 massive thrones rose from the crystalline floor. Each seat represented one of the galaxy's major civilizations, and their occupants held the power to accept or reject humanity's application for galactic citizenship. The air shimmered with translation fields, allowing all species to communicate despite their vastly different languages. High Chancellor Vexarin of the Hegemony Council called the session to order. His voice boomed across the arena through advanced acoustic systems. "We gather today to evaluate the petition of the species known as humans for inclusion in our galactic community. Let the record show that this species has been observed for 57 standard cycles since their first primitive radio transmissions." Ambassador Thornwick stepped forward, his voice calm despite the magnitude of the moment. "Honored members of the Council, we come before you not as conquerors or supplicants, but as neighbors seeking to join the greater galactic family. Humanity offers unique perspectives, innovations, and a sincere desire for peaceful cooperation." A low rumble of skeptical murmurs swept through the alien audience. Korthak the Destroyer, a massive insectoid representative known for his aggressive policies, clicked his mandibles dismissively. "What could such a primitive species possibly offer us? Your technology barely qualifies as space-capable. Your worlds are small and resource-poor. Your lifespans are laughably short." The human ambassador maintained his composure. "We may be young as a spacefaring species, but humanity has overcome countless challenges through ingenuity, adaptability, and an indomitable spirit. We believe these qualities would serve the galactic community well." "Spirit," scoffed Velmaria, the crystalline representative from the Silicon Collective. "Your species hasn't even unified your own planet. You still engage in primitive territorial conflicts. What evidence do we have that you can contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization?" Before Ambassador Thornwick could respond, a commotion erupted in the human delegation's seating area. A small figure had broken away from the group and was running toward the center of the arena. Shocked gasps echoed through the amphitheater as the spectators realized it was a human child, no more than 6 standard years old. "Emma, no!" shouted Dr. Sarah Chen, the expedition's xenobiologist, as she leaped from her seat to pursue the girl. The child, with curly brown hair bouncing as she ran, paid no attention to the thousands of alien eyes now focused on her. Security drones immediately activated throughout the arena, their weapons systems humming to life as they identified an unauthorized presence in the diplomatic zone. High Chancellor Vexarin raised his hand, causing the drones to pause. "What is the meaning of this disruption? Who authorized a juvenile to attend these proceedings?" Ambassador Thornwick's face flushed with embarrassment. "Your Honor, this is Dr. Chen's daughter. She was supposed to remain in the observation deck with the other family members. This is highly irregular and, we apologize for." His words were cut short by a sound that sent ice through the veins of every creature in the arena. A low, rumbling roar echoed from the arena's eastern wall, causing the crystalline structure to vibrate ominously. The temperature in the massive space seemed to drop several degrees as an ancient fear gripped the assembled aliens. "By the void," whispered a Tentari delegate, his translucent skin turning pale. "That sound, it can't be." The eastern wall began to iris open, revealing a tunnel that led to the arena's most secure containment facility. What emerged from that darkness had haunted galactic nightmares for millennia. Nyth Gorak the Devourer, the last of the ancient star dragons, stepped into the light. The creature was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Its scales shimmered with an otherworldly iridescence that seemed to contain entire nebulae within their depths. Each scale was larger than a human torso, and its massive head could have swallowed a small spacecraft whole. Ancient scars crisscrossed its hide, testament to countless battles fought across the galaxy. Panic erupted throughout the arena as aliens scrambled to escape. The star dragons were legend, supposedly extinct for over 2,000 years. They had once ruled the galaxy through pure might and terror, each individual dragon capable of destroying entire fleets with their breath alone. NYTH Gorak was rumored to be the most powerful of them all, responsible for the annihilation of the Coral Reef Nebula civilization. "Nobody move," commanded High Chancellor Vexarin, though his own voice trembled with barely controlled fear. "The containment protocols are still active. The creature is held by energy shackles." Indeed, massive bands of crackling energy encircled the dragon's neck, wings, and legs, keeping it bound. But the very fact that such a being existed in their midst was enough to send terror through the strongest alien warriors present. The dragon's eyes, each one larger than a human head and glowing with the fire of dying stars, swept across the arena with predatory intelligence. Its gaze lingered on various alien delegates, causing several to faint from sheer terror. When those ancient eyes fell upon the human delegation, many expected to see the humans collapse in fear like so many other species had done. Instead, little Emma stopped running and stared up at the massive creature with wide-eyed wonder. "Wow," she breathed, her small voice somehow carrying across the suddenly silent arena. "You're beautiful." The dragon's massive head tilted slightly, as if puzzled by this tiny being's reaction. Where others saw death and destruction, the human child saw majesty and wonder. The contrast was so stark that even the great beast seemed taken aback. Dr. Chen had finally caught up to her daughter and now stood frozen between the child and the dragon, her maternal instincts warring with the knowledge that any sudden movement could trigger a catastrophe. The energy shackles holding NYTH Gorak were powerful, but they were primarily designed to contain the creature's energy-based attacks, not necessarily its physical movement. "Emma," Dr. Chen whispered urgently, "come to mommy very slowly. Don't make any sudden movements." But the little girl seemed oblivious to the danger. She took another step toward the dragon, her small hand reaching out as if she wanted to touch the magnificent creature. The assembled aliens watched in horror, expecting to witness the child's immediate destruction. Ambassador Thornwick realized that this moment would define humanity's first impression on the galactic community. A human child, showing no fear of the galaxy's most dangerous predator, was either about to demonstrate humanity's unique spirit or become a tragic example of their ignorance. The dragon's massive head lowered until it was only a few feet above the child, its breath creating small whirlwinds in the arena's atmosphere. Those burning eyes focused intently on Emma, and, for a moment that stretched into eternity, predator and child regarded each other in perfect silence. What happened next would be recorded in galactic history books for millennia to come, though many who witnessed it would spend years trying to comprehend what they had seen. The moment that would change everything had arrived, and it would begin with the simple innocence of a human child who saw beauty where others saw terror. The silence in the arena was absolute. Even the arena's environmental systems seemed to hold their breath as the massive star dragon and the tiny human child continued their impossible staring contest. NYTH Gorak's ancient eyes, which had witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations, studied Emma with an intensity that made the assembled aliens fear for the girl's sanity. "Someone must stop this," hissed Korthak the Destroyer, his massive insectoid frame trembling despite his warrior reputation. "The creature will drive the child mad with terror. Humans clearly don't understand what they're dealing with." But Dr. Chen, despite every instinct screaming at her to grab her daughter and run, noticed something extraordinary. Emma wasn't showing any signs of the psychological trauma that typically affected beings in close proximity to a star dragon. There was no trembling, no wide-eyed terror, no catatonic shock. Instead, the 6-year-old girl seemed genuinely fascinated by the legendary creature before her. "Hello there, big guy," Emma said softly, her voice carrying an innocent warmth that seemed to cut through the oppressive atmosphere like a blade of light. "Are you sad? You look sad." The dragon's massive head tilted further, and something impossible happened. The burning fury in those stellar eyes seemed to dim slightly, replaced by what could only be described as confusion. In 3 millennia of existence, no being had ever looked upon NYTH Gorak and seen sadness rather than terror. High Chancellor Vexarin leaned forward on his throne, his usually composed demeanor cracking. "The human child appears unaffected by the dragon's psychic pressure field. This should be impossible. Star dragons emit fear-inducing pheromones and psychic emanations that can break the minds of fully grown warriors. Indeed, throughout the arena, alien spectators were still pressed against the far walls, many covering their eyes to avoid direct contact with the dragon's gaze. Some had already fled the arena entirely, while others sat paralyzed in their seats. Yet here was a human child, treating the galaxy's most feared predator like any other creature she might meet at a zoo. Emma took another small step forward, now close enough that the dragon's breath ruffled her hair. My mommy says that when someone looks angry all the time, it's usually because they're hurt inside. Are you hurt, dragon? The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything the galaxy thought it knew about star dragons. These creatures were supposed to be mindless destroyers, ancient forces of chaos that existed only to consume and destroy. They weren't supposed to have feelings, certainly not complex emotions like sadness or loneliness. Nyth Gorak's massive nostrils flared as he took in the child's scent. Dragon senses were far beyond anything possessed by other galactic species, capable of detecting not just physical properties but emotional states, genetic markers, even traces of a being's psychological makeup. What the dragon sensed in this small human defied everything he had learned about galactic species over his long existence. Where other species radiated fear in his presence, this tiny being emitted something he hadn't encountered in over 2,000 years. Genuine compassion, untainted by any agenda or self-preservation instinct. The child's concern for his well-being was real, offered freely without any thought of what she might gain in return. A low rumble emerged from the dragon's throat, but it wasn't the terrifying roar that had preceded his appearance. This sound was softer, almost questioning. Several alien linguists in the audience activated their translation devices, but Star Dragon vocalizations had never been successfully decoded. The language was too ancient, too complex for modern translation systems. But Emma seemed to understand something in that sound, some universal communication that transcended language barriers. It's okay, she said gently, reaching up with one small hand toward the dragon's massive snout. You don't have to be alone anymore. Dr. Chen's scientific mind raced as she observed the interaction. Her daughter was exhibiting behavior that contradicted every known study about human responses to apex predators. There was no fight or flight response, no instinctual recognition of danger. Instead, Emma seemed to be responding to the dragon with the same empathy she showed toward injured animals back on Earth. The child displays no fear response whatsoever, murmured Dr. Zalkath, the arena's chief xenobiologist, into his recording device. This is unprecedented. Either humans possess some unknown psychological defense mechanism, or this individual represents an extraordinary anomaly. Ambassador Thornwick watched in amazement as his entire diplomatic mission transformed into something completely unexpected. Instead of demonstrating humanity's technological capabilities or strategic value, they were witnessing a display of pure emotional intelligence that seemed to be affecting the galaxy's most dangerous creature in ways no one could have predicted. The dragon's head lowered further, bringing those massive eyes level with Emma's face. The child giggled, apparently delighted by the attention. You have the prettiest eyes, she told the creature. They're like looking at stars. Do you miss the stars? Is that why you're sad? This time, the dragon's response was unmistakable. A single, massive tear formed in the corner of one stellar eye and rolled down the creature's scaled cheek. The tear itself was larger than Emma's head, and, when it hit the arena floor, it created a small crater in the crystalline surface. The gathered aliens gasped in shock. Star dragons didn't cry. They didn't show emotion beyond rage and hunger. They certainly didn't respond to emotional appeals from other species. Yet here was Nyth Gorak the Devourer, the terror of a dozen worlds, displaying what could only be interpreted as grief. Impossible, breathed Velmaria from the Silicon Collective. The creature is responding to the human child's emotional state. Star dragons are supposed to be incapable of empathy or emotional connection. But the evidence was undeniable. The dragon's entire posture had changed. Where before he had carried himself with predatory menace, now there was something almost vulnerable about his stance. The burning fury in his eyes had been replaced by something far more complex, an ancient sadness that seemed to echo across millennia. Emma reached up and gently touched the dragon's snout, her tiny hand disappearing against the massive scale. It's okay to be sad, she whispered. Sometimes I get sad too. But my mommy says that's when you need hugs the most. What happened next would be debated by xenopsychologists for centuries. Nyth Gorak, the galaxy's most feared predator, slowly and carefully lowered his massive head until it rested gently on the arena floor beside the human child. The gesture was unmistakably one of trust and acceptance, a powerful creature making himself vulnerable to a tiny being who had shown him unexpected kindness. The energy shackles binding the dragon flickered and sparked as his movement strained their containment fields, but the great beast was careful not to break free. He seemed to understand that such action would only bring harm to the small human who had treated him with such unprecedented compassion. Emma, displaying the fearless affection that only children possess, wrapped her small arms around as much of the dragon's massive head as she could encompass. "There," she said softly, "everyone needs hugs sometimes. Even scary dragons." The sight of a 6-year-old human child embracing the head of the galaxy's most dangerous creature sent shockwaves through the assembled aliens. Many species that had considered themselves superior to humans began to reassess their assumptions. What kind of people could produce children capable of such extraordinary empathy and courage? High Chancellor Vexarin found his voice after several long moments. "Dr. Chen, is this normal behavior for human children?" Dr. Chen, still stunned by what she was witnessing, managed to find her words. "Emma has always been exceptionally compassionate, even by human standards. But what you're seeing, this ability to connect with other species regardless of their appearance or reputation, this represents the best of what humanity can offer." The dragon's eyes closed as he accepted the child's embrace, and, for the first time in 2 millennia, Nyth Gorak experienced something he had forgotten existed: genuine, unconditional kindness from another living being. The implications of this moment were staggering, not just for the diplomatic proceedings, but for everything the galaxy thought it knew about both humans and star dragons. The moment stretched into something magical as Emma continued to hug the massive dragon's head. Nyth Gorak remained perfectly still, afraid that even the slightest movement might break this unprecedented connection with another living being. For 3,000 years, he had known only fear, hatred, and isolation. The warmth radiating from this tiny human was like discovering fire after an eternity of cold darkness. Across the arena, alien spectators struggled to process what they were witnessing. The Krillian warrior delegates, renowned throughout the galaxy for their combat prowess, found themselves questioning their own understanding of strength. Here was a human child displaying a form of courage they had never encountered, courage that didn't come from weapons or training, but from pure compassion. "Alert the High Command immediately," whispered General Thexnar to his aide. "If human children can naturally pacify star dragons, we need to completely revise our threat assessment of this species." Meanwhile, in the diplomatic section, representatives from various alien civilizations began urgent communications with their home worlds. The implications of what they were seeing extended far beyond simple diplomacy. If humans possessed this innate ability to connect with the galaxy's most dangerous creatures, what else might they be capable of? Dr. Chen slowly approached her daughter, moving carefully to avoid startling either Emma or the dragon. As a xenobiologist, she was rapidly cataloging the behavioral changes in Nyth Gorak. The creature's stress indicators had completely normalized. His aggressive posturing had vanished, replaced by what could only be described as contentment. "Emma, sweetheart," Dr. Chen said softly, "you're being very brave. But we should let the nice dragon rest now." The little girl looked up at her mother with bright, innocent eyes. "But, Mommy, he's lonely. Can't you see it? He's been alone for such a long time. Nobody ever visits him or talks to him. That's why he got so angry." This observation sent ripples of shock through the alien dignitaries. The child had somehow intuited the dragon's emotional state with an accuracy that eluded even the most advanced xenopsychological scanners. Star dragons had been in captivity for over a millennium, held in solitary confinement as a safeguard against their destructive capabilities. No one had ever considered the psychological impact of such isolation on creatures that might possess complex emotional needs. High Chancellor Vexarin activated his personal communication device, speaking in hushed tones to someone off-site. Within moments, a team of xenopsychologists and dragon specialists materialized in the arena via emergency transport. They immediately began taking readings and measurements, their equipment detecting physiological changes in Nyth Gorak that defied their understanding of dragon biology. "Impossible," muttered Dr. Valkyrie, the galaxy's leading expert on star dragon behavior. "The creature's stress hormones have dropped to levels we've never recorded. His brain activity shows patterns consistent with emotional healing. How is a human child accomplishing what centuries of advanced psychology could not?" Ambassador Thornwick realized that this moment had transformed their entire diplomatic mission. Instead of pleading humanity's case for galactic membership, they were demonstrating capabilities that the alien civilizations had never imagined possible. "Honored council members," he said, his voice carrying new confidence, "what you're witnessing represents the essence of humanity. We may not possess the advanced technology of the hegemony or the physical might of the Krillian Empire, but we offer something perhaps more valuable, the ability to find common ground with any species, no matter how different or dangerous they might appear." Korthak the Destroyer clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. For the first time in his military career, he was witnessing a form of warfare he didn't understand. This human child had accomplished in minutes what entire battle fleets could not achieve, neutralizing the galaxy's greatest threat through compassion rather than force. Emma suddenly brightened as she looked at the assembled aliens. "Oh. He wants to tell you something. He's trying very hard to talk, but nobody understands dragon language anymore. That makes him even sadder because he has important things to say." The Zetalinguistics team immediately activated their most advanced translation protocols, but Star Dragon language had been considered a dead language for over 2,000 years. No living being had successfully communicated with a dragon in recorded history. But Emma seemed untroubled by this limitation. She pressed her small ear against the dragon's massive snout and listened intently as Nyth Gorak made a series of low, complex sounds. The little girl nodded seriously, as if she understood every word. "He says the bad guys are coming back," Emma announced to the stunned arena. "The ones from the dark between stars. He's been trying to warn everyone, but nobody would listen because they were too scared of him. He says they hurt his family a long time ago, and now they're coming back to hurt everyone else." The temperature in the arena seemed to drop several degrees as the implications of Emma's words sank in. The Void Hunters, the mysterious force that had driven the Star Dragons to near extinction, were considered ancient history. Their disappearance 3 millennia ago had been one of the great mysteries of galactic civilization. High Chancellor Vexaran leaned forward on his throne, his usual composure completely shattered. "Child, are you certain of what the dragon is telling you? The Void Hunters vanished from our galaxy long ago. There has been no sign of their presence for 3,000 years. Emma nodded solemnly, her small hand still resting on Nyth Gorak's snout. "He says they didn't go away. They went to sleep in the dark places, waiting for the dragons to die so they couldn't fight back anymore. But he's the last one, and he's not strong enough to stop them alone. That's why he's so sad and angry all the time." The dragon's massive eyes focused on the council members, and, for the first time since his capture, Nyth Gorak made an obvious attempt to communicate. A series of deep, resonant tones emerged from his throat, each one carefully modulated as if he were desperately trying to make himself understood. Dr. Chen's scientific mind was racing. "Emma, sweetheart, how can you understand what the dragon is saying? Have you heard this language before?" The little girl looked puzzled by the question. "I don't understand the words, Mommy. But I can feel what he's feeling, and I can see the pictures in his head. He's showing me memories of when the bad things came before. They look like giant spiders made of darkness, and they ate whole planets." This description matched ancient records of Void Hunter encounters with terrifying accuracy. The council members exchanged worried glances as they realized that either the human child possessed extraordinary psychic abilities, or the galaxy was about to face a threat they thought had been eliminated forever. General Thexanar activated his emergency communication array. "All border stations, this is Priority Alpha. Initiate deep space scans for anomalous dark matter signatures. Historical pattern matching for Void Hunter technology markers." As military communications buzzed throughout the arena, Emma continued her impossible conversation with the dragon. "He says the humans smell different from other people," she reported. "Not scared different, but strong different. He thinks humans might be able to help fight the bad guys because we don't give up when things get scary." Nyth Gorak's attention turned to Ambassador Thornwick, and the ancient dragon made a sound that was unmistakably questioning. Emma listened carefully before translating. "He wants to know if humans would be willing to help him protect everyone from the Void Hunters. He says his people made a mistake before by trying to fight alone. This time, he wants to work together." The arena fell silent as the true magnitude of the situation became clear. Humanity's application for galactic citizenship had suddenly become far more than a diplomatic formality. They were being asked to join an ancient alliance against a threat that had once brought the galaxy to its knees. Ambassador Thornwick straightened his shoulders, feeling the weight of history settling upon them. tell NYTH Gorak that humanity would be honored to stand with him against this threat. We may be young and inexperienced compared to other galactic civilizations, but we will never abandon those who need our help." The dragon's response was immediate and unmistakable. NYTH Gorak raised his massive head and released a sound unlike anything he had made before. It wasn't a roar of fury or grief, but something that could only be described as a song. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, filled with notes that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of spacetime. Throughout the arena, aliens who had fled in terror began to return, drawn by the dragon's song. The music seemed to awaken something primal in every species present, a memory of unity and cooperation that transcended individual fears and prejudices. NYTH Gorak's song filled the arena with harmonies that seemed to awaken memories buried deep in the collective consciousness of every species present. As the haunting melody continued, something unprecedented began to happen. The energy shackles containing the dragon started to resonate with the frequency of his song, their harsh electrical crackling gradually synchronizing with the musical tones until they transformed from instruments of bondage into something resembling a light show. Emma clapped her hands in delight as the energy bands began to shift from threatening red to gentle blues and purples. "Look, Mommy! He's making the angry chains pretty. He's not dangerous anymore. He just needed someone to listen to his song." Dr. Valkyrie, the dragon expert, stared at his instruments in disbelief. The containment field isn't failing, it's evolving. The dragon is somehow modulating the energy frequency to match his vocalizations. This level of technological intuition is impossible for any biological creature. High Chancellor Vexarin found himself rising from his throne, drawn by the dragon's song despite every instinct telling him to maintain his distance. "In all my years of galactic service, I have never witnessed anything like this. The creature is demonstrating capabilities that our greatest scientists insisted were theoretically impossible." The song began to include visual elements as NYTH Gorak's scales started to glow with soft, pulsing light. The patterns weren't random but formed complex images that told a story spanning millennia. The assembled aliens watched in wonder as the dragon's hide became a living canvas depicting the history of the galaxy from a perspective none of them had ever seen. Emma served as narrator for the visual story unfolding on the dragon's scales. "He's showing us the old times, when his family lived among the stars and helped keep the peace. Look, there are the pretty crystal people and the big bug soldiers, all working together with the dragons to protect everyone." The images showed star dragons not as the destructive forces described in modern galactic history, but as guardians and protectors. They worked alongside the ancestors of current civilizations, using their incredible power to defend against threats from beyond the galaxy's borders. The portrayal contradicted centuries of accepted historical record. "This challenges everything we know about galactic history," whispered Dr. Zalketh to his colleagues. "If these images are accurate, the star dragons weren't invaders or destroyers. They were the galaxy's first line of defense." The visual narrative progressed to show the arrival of the Void Hunters, creatures of living darkness that consumed light, matter, and even thought itself. The images were so vivid and terrifying that several alien spectators had to look away. These beings defied the natural laws of physics, existing partially outside normal spacetime and feeding on the life force of entire star systems. Emma's voice grew somber as she continued translating the dragon's memories. "The shadow monsters came from the empty spaces between galaxies. They were hungry for all the light and life here. The dragons tried to fight them, but the shadow things were too strong and too many." The scale showed epic battles that raged across star systems, with star dragons unleashing cosmic forces that could reshape nebulae and crack planets. But, for every void hunter they destroyed, dozens more seemed to emerge from the dark void between galaxies. The war lasted for centuries, gradually wearing down even the mighty dragons. NYTH Gorak's song grew sadder as the images showed the final battle, where the last star dragons made a desperate sacrifice to drive the void hunters back into the dark void. The effort cost them everything. Most dragons died in the battle, and the few survivors were left powerless and broken, easy targets for the younger galactic civilizations who had never understood the dragon's true purpose. "He says his people didn't want to be rulers or conquerors," Emma translated, tears now running down her small cheeks. "They just wanted to protect everyone." But, after the big fight, nobody remembered that the dragons were the good guys. Everyone was too scared and angry to listen. The tragic irony wasn't lost on the assembled aliens. The very creatures they had imprisoned and feared were the ones who had saved the galaxy from destruction. The Star Dragons had been heroes, not villains, and their reward had been imprisonment and demonization. General Thexanar stepped forward, his warriors' pride warring with a growing sense of shame. Great Dragon, if your images speak truth, then the galaxy owes your people a debt that can never be repaid. We have treated you as monsters when you were protectors. NYTH Gorak's massive eyes turned to the Krillian general, and the dragon's response was relayed through Emma. He says it's not about owing debts. He just wants to make sure the shadow monsters don't come back and hurt more families like they hurt his. He forgives everyone for being scared because being scared when you don't understand something is natural. This display of forgiveness from a creature who had suffered millennia of unjust imprisonment sent shockwaves through the alien delegates. Many species prided themselves on their advanced moral philosophies, yet none had demonstrated the capacity for forgiveness on such a scale. The dragon's song shifted to a new tone, and the images on his scales began showing the present day. Deep space monitoring stations, border patrols, and the outer rim settlements that formed the galaxy's early warning system. But, in the darkness beyond the galactic edge, something was stirring. Oh no, Emma gasped, pointing at the patterns forming on NYTH Gorak's scales. The bad things are waking up. They can smell that the dragons are almost all gone, and they're getting ready to come back. He says we have maybe 1 year before they start coming. The arena erupted in urgent communications as military commanders and civilian leaders began coordinating responses to this new threat. But, underneath the chaos, another profound change was taking place. The barriers between species, the prejudices and fears that had kept the galactic civilizations separated, were crumbling in the face of a shared existential threat. Ambassador Thornwick realized that this moment represented more than just humanity's entry into the galactic community. It was the birth of something entirely new, a true alliance based not on political convenience or economic advantage, but on genuine understanding and mutual respect. Honored council members, he announced, his voice cutting through the noise, humanity stands ready to join this fight. But, more than that, we pledge to serve as intermediaries between the galactic civilizations and NYTH Gorak. If our children can understand the dragons, then, perhaps together we can forge an alliance strong enough to face whatever darkness approaches. Emma looked up at the massive dragon and whispered something too soft for the recording devices to catch. NYTH Gorak's response was a gentle rumble that made the little girl giggle. She then turned to address the entire arena, her small voice somehow carrying to every corner of the vast space. Mr. Dragon says that the shadow monsters are afraid of one thing, love. Not fighting love or protecting love, but the kind of love that makes different people want to be friends. He says that's why they tried to make everyone afraid of each other after the big war. Scared people don't love each other very much. The profound simplicity of this observation struck every being present. The Void Hunters hadn't just been defeated by superior firepower in their first invasion. They had been driven back by the unity and cooperation of the galactic civilizations working together. Their retreat had been followed by centuries of increasing isolation and mistrust between species. High Chancellor Vex Aaron stood slowly, his expression grave but determined. Then, it appears our enemy has been among us all along, not in physical form, but in the fear and suspicion that has grown between our peoples. If the child speaks truly, then our greatest weapon against this threat is not our fleets or our technology, but our ability to trust and care for one another. As if in response to his words, NYTH Gorak began to sing again, but this time his song was joined by voices from across the arena. Aliens who had never met began humming along with the dragon's melody, creating an impromptu choir that transcended species barriers. The sound they made together was more beautiful and powerful than anything any individual could produce alone. The impromptu choir of alien voices joining NYTH Gorak's song created something magical in the arena. As species after species added their voices to the harmony, the dragon's scales,